In the last few weeks, we've seen a big controversy in Halo with the possibility of Spartan points or microtransactions being added to the MCC. There's a few things I want to talk about here because it's not quite as simple as it seems, and also quite a lot which is being missed by the community in its outrage. So I'm just going to read a little bit about this and then we'll get into it. As we shifted away from seasons, what's previously been named season points, points earned by completing challenges and leveling up to unlock items, will eventually be renamed to Spartan points in a future update. Over the years, the MCC has been continually supported with new content, and the game now features well over 1,000 plus individual customization items, spanning armor, attachments, nameplates, weapons, vehicle skins, armor effects, firefight voices, and more. That's quite a lot. For players who are new to the MCC, or who may not have dedicated much time specifically to unlocking items during the seasonal updates, or are simply completionists looking to catch the last outstanding items they need, we're internally exploring a potential new feature for the future in the form of purchasable Spartan points. Now, one thing I want to say about this is, are they just floating this out there as a test balloon just to see what the reaction is and how much kickback there is? It's entirely possible that they might say, do you know what, based on your feedback, we're just going to bin this idea off. We're not going to do it. We're not going to add those items in there. And in fact, they go on to say it's prudent to know that we're happy with the current system of how players earn Spartan points by completing challenges. This will be an optional additive alternative for players who might find the vast scope of content to be an intimidating amount. Now, that's absolutely true. There's a huge number of customization options in the MCC, a massive number of skins, a massive number of items that you can add to your Spartans and whatnot. It is really huge. So if you're a new player trying to get into the game, you know, this is maybe one easy way to get into it. The only thing I would say is that if you can just purchase this stuff, it just devalues it for anybody else who's already played it. Those players are already dedicated. They've already worked their way through all 8 seasons or you know, a lot of them. And if someone can just come in, buy everything up, all you're doing is taking that money. You're not actually adding to the player count because, right, so let's say you've got a new player. He joins the MCC, realizes he can buy everything. He's got a load of money. He buys everything. Now what is there to do? He's got no reason to play the game. It's a short-term fix at most. How many people are actually going to buy this? How big are the MCC player numbers? Let's face it. Yes, there are tens of thousands of people playing it, but it's not millions, it's not hundreds of thousands of players, it's not millions of players. So the amount of money they're going to earn out of this versus the reputational damage that they do by adding in microtransactions, really for me, it doesn't really seem worth it. Is there really so much content that new players can't make sense of it? I'm really not sure there is. Yes, it's confusing. Yes, there's a lot of it, but once you actually work out how Spartan points work and how you earn them, it's actually pretty easy to do that. So are they trying to sell us on an idea or on a problem which actually doesn't exist? 343 are trying to make it sound like there's this huge insurmountable world that people need to buy their way into, and I really just don't think that problem exists. This also brings us on to another point of how games are funded. This game was released in 2014. Now, it had a load of problems when it started up. It wasn't really playable. It's taken them many years to get to a point where the game is in its current state, which is absolutely fantastic. But as games become more live service, how long is a company obligated to keep that service live for? Now, for anybody that thinks that microtransactions are a bad thing, clearly they are. But we all live in the real world. These games need to be updated. The servers need to be patched. They need to be managed properly, and bugs need to be squashed when they're found. Now, as a game gets older, there should be fewer and fewer bugs, but you've still got that maintenance cost. There's that underlying cost. Microsoft aren't running this thing as a charity, that it's there to make money. So it raises the question, how is the MCC going to be funded going forward, and how long should it stay live for? We've had it since 2014. It was in a right state when it first launched, but it's now been around for a long time. It's 2022. Is it going to go for another 10 years? Is it going to go for another 6 years? At what point will they shut down those Halo multiplayer servers so that you can no longer play Halo 1, 2, 3, and 4, Reach, whatever it is you want to play? How long are we going to be able to do that? So the MCC needs a funding model. So how do they do that? Is it by a subscription? Where it becomes a truly live service? Now, I don't see that really taking off. I'm not sure the player numbers are there. What price would they set? Would it be $5 too much? If it's $2, $3 a month, at which point you're really not making that much more money on it anyway. Could there be super features or a freemium model where you get access to an extended set of cosmetics or super features? Maybe there's some other things that they could add in. I'm really thinking about the Discord model of features. Maybe there are social features or badges or things like that you could add in. Maybe there are things that they could do with streaming services to fund the MCC. Microtransactions are a possibility, but how they're implemented so that they don't ruin the MCC's core gameplay experience, and they also don't cheapen or lessen the time that's been put in by the players who have completed all of the seasons and have got all of that content essentially for free. How do they not cheapen that achievement? Are there paid expansions that could be added? Are there map packs that they could do? Could they bring in new maps from Infinite into, maybe even port those back in and have those be paid map packs Are there things that they could do for Forge? Are there expansions there that they could sell into people? Now, again, those could all be labeled as microtransactions, but fundamentally, this game has to generate some money for Microsoft. Really, this debate is entirely tied up in how long you expect the MCC multiplayer to remain playable for. If it's a long, long time, then it needs a funding model which will support it. Without at least some revenue stream from it, eventually, and possibly sooner rather than later, it will close. Now, clearly, 343 designed Halo Infinite, at least the intention of it, with their another one of their famous 10-year plans, was that it was going to be the game, it was going to be the platform, and I think they really do see it as a platform to take the Halo franchise forward, and that they were going to build everything off from it. I think in an ideal world, what they would see, MCC player numbers dwindling as time goes by, and they can reduce the amount of money that it costs them to maintain that game, maintain that service, and eventually that they would shut it down and everybody would be happy with that because we've all moved on to Halo Infinite and everybody's playing that and nobody's bothering with the old stuff anymore anyway. That clearly hasn't happened. In fact, the reverse has happened. Players are flooding back into the MCC because they want their Halo fix. I'm seeing more and more content creators cover the MCC and feature it in their videos. Now, it could be because of how core Halo is to the Xbox franchise, that the MCC remains there as this sort of tentpole bastion of what they think excellent looks like. And it's a thing that Halo players and Xbox players can all point out and say, look, here's this free thing. It's it's a real draw for new players coming in, and it just remains free forevermore. And Microsoft are happy to run it almost as a marketing exercise. I've said before in videos that Halo is Xbox. Without it, the brand suffers major damage. It's like a Mario for Nintendo. It's like Sonic for Sega. Any one of those iconic gaming characters who you can point to and say, that's Master Chief. That means Xbox. That means Microsoft. If that brand is dealt major damage, that actually does something to Microsoft's bottom line. Not immediately, but over the long term, it will hurt sales numbers. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the MCC. I personally hope that it is left as a free game. I'd love to see more content to it. I'd actually be prepared to pay a fair price for that content. But I don't think microtransactions are the way forward. But it's a really interesting debate. I think it's going to carry on, and it will be really interesting if, as others have suggested, that even though they've said that this is only a possibility, that this is definitely coming. It definitely smacks of desperation on the part of 343. Perhaps they've got sales targets that they need to hit. Perhaps they need to show that they're monetizing all of their intellectual properties in a particular way. It'll be really interesting to see or to hear some of the details on that. At the moment, as it says in the blog post, they're only looking maybe at the possibility of it. And the wording around this is so woolly as to be a bit of a joke, really. And in fact, they say, in the interest of transparency with their dedicated and passionate community, we wanted to inform you of this exploration in advance and provide assurance that purchasable Spartan points would be an additive feature. We'll have more information to share about this in the future. It'll be really interesting to see if they've actually got the balls to carry this through. I think the backlash has been fairly severe, and I think because of that, they're definitely going to be looking at this from a marketing point of view, from a PR point of view, and saying, actually, is this worth it? How much money are we actually likely to generate from this? And is that enough to make the backlash worthwhile? I think for me and most people watching this video, the answer to that would be no, but we are still left with that question. How is the MCC going to be funded from here on out? And how long do you expect those servers to stay live for? If it's a long, long time, as I said earlier in the video, I think this game needs a funding model. I think it needs a way to monetize itself. Otherwise, eventually and potentially sooner rather than later, it might be shut down, or it might be sidelined in favor of other things. Certainly, if the Battle Royale takes off, if Halo Infinite can make any kind of comeback at all in terms of player numbers, in terms of monetization, then I'm sure we'll see the MCC just kind of left to its own devices. But while those games struggle, or while those games have not been released, I think they're going to continue to tinker around with the MCC to see where they can make money from this thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think microtransactions at all in any game are a good idea? Do you think they're good for the MCC? And what ideas have you got for funding the MCC going forward? Cheers for watching. I'll see you in the next one.